Hello, dear students. How are you? Let us recapitulate this chapter once again and then we'll go towards next chapter, that is control and coordination. First of all, we have to see what we have learned in this chapter, as it is a big chapter. Considering more weightage to this chapter, I feel I must revise this chapter, and while going through, if some unleft left parts are there, remain parts are there, we will discuss about them also. Let's begin with. Initially, I told you to download science book from NCERT website, and this is the website where these all NCERT books of all subjects are available. You can still click on the website, you can put on in the address bar of your web browser and you can download the science book. All these recent books are available on the website. At the beginning of this chapter, I told you what we are going to understand at the end of this chapter, and the topics were: what is life process, nutrition, in that mode of nutrition and nutrition in human beings, respiration, external, that is physiological, and internal, that is cellular respiration, transportation in plants and animals, excretion in humans and plants. These are the topics we are going to cover in this chapter. To begin with, I told you what is meant by life process. So these life processes are the vital processes carried out by living organisms in order to maintain and sustain life. Molecular movements are essential to carry out the various life processes. So which are these life processes are? This life process includes nutrition, the process of taking food in, then respiration, breakdown of food to release energy, transportation, the process of distribution, and excretion, collection of waste material and removal from the body. So this is meant by life processes. We have discussed about the life process, different types of life process. In that, it starts from nutrition. So what is meant by nutrition? The first life process, very important, vital life process, which provide required food to the body. So nutrition means energy requirement to carry out different life processes is obtained from carbon-based food sources through nutrition. So nutrition can be divided into two types we have seen, that is autotrophic type of nutrition and heterotrophic type of nutrition. In autotrophic type of nutrition, organisms who can prepare their own food material are called as autotrophs or autotrophic type of nutrition. In that, we have seen that chemoautotrophs and photoautotrophs can be kept. Now, second part is heterotrophic type of nutrition. In heterotrophic type of nutrition, the organisms who can't prepare their own food material are called as a heterotrophic type of nutrition. So the organisms who are unable to prepare their own food material are classified into further three types. They are saprotrophs, that is saprophytic type of nutrition, parasitic type of nutrition, and holozoic type of nutrition. So what is by saprophytic? The organisms who obtain food from dead and decaying organisms are called as a saprophytic. For example, fungi and bacteria. Parasitic means what? The organisms who are dependent on other living organisms for the food. They are called as a parasitic. Parasitic also further classified into two types, that is total parasite and partial parasite. Some organisms are totally dependent on other organisms for their food material, they are total parasites, whereas some of the organisms can do photosynthesis or some certain types of activities, but they are unable to obtain their whole nutrition by natural way, so they are called as a partial parasites. Examples we are going to see about it. And next part is holozoic type of nutrition, the organisms who engulf food, who take their food inside their body and digest it are called as a holozoic type of nutrition. Example is amoeba and human. I told you to write difference between autotrophic and heterotrophic type of nutrition in homework. Most of the students have completed their homework too. Let's go towards each type of nutrition one by one. First of all, let us go towards autotrophic type of nutrition. In autotrophic type of nutrition, we have seen that the organisms who are preparing their own food material are called as a autotrophs or autotrophic type of nutrition. So, which were further divided into chemoautotrophs and photoautotrophs. Chemoautotrophs are the organisms which are preparing their own food material with the help of certain types of chemicals like sulfur dioxide. But in this chapter, we are concerned about the photoautotrophs. So photosynthesis is the process by which most of the green plants prepare their own food material. So what is by photosynthesis? Carbon and energy requirements of the autotrophic organisms are fulfilled by this photosynthesis process. It is a process by which autotrophs take in substances from the outside and convert them into stored forms of energy. This material is taken in the form of carbon dioxide and water, which is converted into carbohydrates in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll pigments. Carbohydrates are utilized for providing energy to the plants. About this, how to prepare definition, we have discussed already in the previous video lecture. You can go through it again. We have discussed about what are the requirements and products of photosynthesis. So the requirements are carbon dioxide, water, chlorophyll pigments and sunlight, and whereas products are glucose, that is starch, and oxygen. We have to prove them experimentally how they are required or whether they are required or not for the process of photosynthesis, and for that we have formulated different type of experiments. Here we discuss how to prove chlorophyll is necessary for photosynthesis with the help of variegated leaves. Variegated leaves means chlorophyll containing and chlorophyll non containing part of the leaf, and after taking that leaf we have conducted one experiment where it was proved that chlorophyll is necessary for photosynthesis. We have discussed about it, so I will not repeat it again. Here is the experiment to prove that carbon dioxide is necessary for photosynthesis. With the help of bell jar and potted plants, with the help of KOH, that is potassium hydroxide, we have proved that carbon dioxide is necessary for photosynthesis. Here this activity was given to you to plan it, whether you can complete it or not, that how to prove that sunlight is necessary for photosynthesis. So we have to plan. You have planned very properly. Most of the students have replied me on WhatsApp groups. They have sent their answers how to prove that sunlight is necessary for photosynthesis. Some of you, if not yet sent the replies, you can send it again. Now next is heterotrophic type of nutrition. We already discussed about different types of heterotrophic type of nutrition as saprophytic, parasitic and holozoic. Now as far as saprophytic are concerned, the type of organisms which live or which obtain their food from dead and decaying material are called as a saprophytic. Their examples are fungi, in that you can consider mucor, that is bread mold, mushrooms, etc. Another type is parasitic type of nutrition in heterotrophic type of nutrition. For example, leech, amarbel. In parasitic, I told you there are two types again, that is partially parasite and facultative parasite. That is partially parasite or facultative parasite and complete parasite. The organisms which are dependent on for their food fully, they are called as a complete parasite. For example, leech, bloodsucker insects, they are fully parasites. Whereas amarbel, it can photosynthesis, it cannot photosynthesize but can absorb some nutrients. So amarbel will be a partial parasite. Next type is holozoic type of nutrition. For example, amoeba or humans. In that, these organisms are engulfing the food inside their body. They are taking food in the body and digest it. They are called as a holozoic type of nutrition. Here is example of holozoic type of nutrition in amoeba. With the help of pseudopodia, as you can see in the figure, false foods, that is pseudopodia, amoeba cover its food and create vacuole around it, hence taking food inside the body and secrete digestive enzymes in vacuoles. Now this is a vacuole which is created by the amoeba around the food. Once food gets digested, amoeba absorb nutrients from the vacuoles and throw out the remaining undigested material out of the body. So this is kind of taking food inside the body, digest it and throwing remaining food material out of the body. This is called as a holozoic type of nutrition. Example is amoeba. Here we have seen nutrition in human beings. The diagram which is shown in this slide, it is taken from your NCERT book, Human Alimentary Canal. Human digestive system consists of alimentary canal and digestive glands. So whole digestive system is made up of alimentary canal plus digestive glands. Now what is meant by alimentary canal? A pipe from mouth to anus is called as a alimentary canal, and digestive glands are supporting the alimentary canal to digest the food. Now what are the parts of alimentary canal? Mouth, buccal cavity, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine and anus are the parts of alimentary canal. Now which are the glands which are helping to digest the food? You can see in the given figure that inside mouth there is a salivary glands which secrete saliva. In that the enzyme is present is salivary amylase. Then the food goes through esophagus to the stomach. In stomach there are certain types of glands. They produce HCl, pepsin and mucus. Then next is liver. Liver produces bile juices. Then it is pancreas. Inside pancreas we have seen there is a production of trypsin and lipase. Then in small intestine there are certain types of glands. Above all, the enzymes are secreted in a small amount in small intestine where digestion of food takes place. Actually, digestion of food starts from mouth itself. In mouth, salivary amylase digests starch. In stomach, proteins are digested by pepsin. After that, bile juices, emulsification of fats is taking place. Whatever trypsin, remaining tryptophan proteins are digested by the trypsin which are secreted by the pancreas. Then lipase break down lipids, that is fats, into glycerin and fatty acids. So all these are absorbed in small intestine with the help of finger-like projections called as villi. We have seen about it. Then the food, remaining food, after absorption in small intestine, remaining food will be sent to the large intestine and through anus it will be sent out of the body. So once again, here it is holozoic type of nutrition in the human beings. We have seen about it, we have discussed about it through animation also. So just if you have not watched animations previous video lecture, you can once again go through. Here we have seen one animation how digestive system works in human beings. If you have not watched it, you just go towards previous video lectures you will get idea how exactly digestive system in human beings works. Then we discuss about dental caries. So dental caries or tooth decay causes gradual softening of enamels and dentine. It begins when bacteria acting on sugars produce acids that soften or demineralize the enamel. Masses of bacterial cells together with food particles stick to the teeth to form dental plaque. Saliva cannot reach the tooth surface to neutralize the acid as plaque covers the teeth. Brushing the teeth after eating removes the plaque before the bacteria produce acids. If untreated, microorganisms may invade the pulp, causing inflammation and infection. So, we have discussed that brush your teeth twice a day after your meals is very essential as far as our health of teeth are required. Next part of this chapter was respiration. In respiration, we have discussed there are two types of respiration. One is physiological, that is called as external respiration. In common language, we call it as a breathing. Next part is cellular respiration, which happens at cellular level or cell level, where actual breakdown of glucose into energy and carbon dioxide takes place, that is cellular respiration. With the help of animations, we have already seen how exactly breathing process takes place, that is physiological process, that is external respiration takes place through nostrils, air goes towards lungs, exchange of gases takes place, oxygen is carried out by hemoglobin, by blood in our different parts of the body, and from different parts of the body carbon dioxide is collected, waste material is collected and again brought to the lungs, and here again at lungs carbon dioxide is thrown out of the body by the breathing process, where exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen takes place at lungs level. So this whole process of respiration, that is physiological respiration breathing process, is mediated by heart, because heart is a pump which brings and carries blood throughout our body. We discussed how breathing process in aquatic animals is more comparative to terrestrial animals, as oxygen is dissolved in the water. To separate that oxygen from the water, it takes more efforts for aquatic animals, and amount of oxygen dissolved in the water is comparatively less to the terrestrial environment. So obviously aquatic animals need more rate or need more efforts to do the breathing. So breathing process in aquatic animals is more compared to the terrestrial animals. Now next part is cellular respiration. In cellular respiration, this is the actual respiration which is taking place at cell level, where actual glucose is broken down into carbon dioxide and energy. Now what exactly happens at cell level? Let us see. Glucose molecules which are brought by blood from small intestine with the process of absorption with the help of small intestinal villi, the glucose was absorbed and through blood it was sent to the different parts of the body at each cell level. Now at every cell level, this glucose is broken down into pyruvic acid, that is pyruvate, in cytoplasm. We know cell have different parts, that is cytoplasm, and different cell organelles. So this is liquid part present in the cell, that is cytoplasm, where this actual breakdown of glucose takes place initially, and this glucose, which is 6 carbon compound, 6 carbon molecule, get broken down into pyruvic acid, that is pyruvate, which is 3 carbon molecule. Some energy up to 2 ATP is released during this process of cellular respiration. Now this pyruvic acid get converted by three ways. It depends on the situation, which situations are there. Accordingly, this breakdown of pyruvic acid takes place. Obviously, this whole process henceforth will take place inside the mitochondria. We know mitochondria are called as a powerhouse of the cell, where breakdown takes place and energy is released. So, if oxygen is absent, what will happen? If oxygen is not available for respiration, it is but obvious that respiration will not take place fully. For respiration, there is a requirement of oxygen. So here is an example. In case of yeast, if oxygen is not present, then this is first pathway, that pyruvic acid will get straightway converted into ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy. If in case there is a lack of oxygen, oxygen is available but in not ample amount, in such cases second pathway works, that is in our muscle cells, for example, pyruvic acid get converted into lactic acid. So why we get cramps in our muscles? This is the reason. This pyruvic acid, due to less availability of oxygen, get converted into lactic acid, and accumulation of lactic acid in our muscle causes cramps. So here again very less energy is released. Third pathway is when ample amount of oxygen is present inside the mitochondria. In presence of my oxygen, this pyruvic acid get converted into carbon dioxide and energy plus water. So this here actual breakdown or total breakdown of glucose takes place. About 36 ATP are released by this process, and this ATP, we know that this is the currency of the cell, and these ATPs are utilized for performing different functions in our body. So this was about cellular respiration. We have already discussed about it. Once again I have repeated for you. So on this particular topic, question may be asked during the examination. Here we have seen how respiration takes place, and this respiration, breathing process takes place at lungs level, exchange of gases takes place. Do you know, if the alveolar surfaces were spread out, it would cover about 80 meters square. It is near about one basketball ground, 80 meters square. So that much big surface area is covered by our lungs with the help of alveolar surface. So this is why efficient exchange of gases becomes easier, because of the large surface area available for the exchange to take place. Now if like plants or unicellular organisms, if diffusion were to move oxygen in our body, it is estimated that it would take 3 years for a molecule oxygen to get to our toes from our lungs. So we must be glad that we have hemoglobin. Can you consider, we are breathing today, and after 3 years that oxygen is reaching to our toes, if this blood circulation would have not there, isn't it? So diffusion process is not meant for multicellular organisms, multicellular animals I rather say. So this was about this alveolar surface and exchange of gases with the help of pumping of blood and breathing process. We have one question in examination. that prove that during respiration carbon dioxide is released. There are two ways to prove this. Recently you have performed one activity, that is production of carbon dioxide from household things, and you have tested that whether this is carbon dioxide or not with the help of lime water, isn't it? Now we have to prove during respiration carbon dioxide is released. So what simple experiment we can do is, we have to take one straw, we have to prepare lime water, and with the help of straw we have to exhale in the lime water. What will happen? Obviously exchange of gas has taken place at alveoli, the carbon dioxide is released, carbon dioxide is given out of the body, so that carbon dioxide will mix with lime water and lime water will turn milky. It's a simple experiment to prove that carbon dioxide is released during respiration. Now what about in case of plants? In case of plants, we can prove this experiment by taking one conical flask in which there are certain germinating seeds we have to keep, and we have to take one U-shaped bent pipe, so that whatever gas has released will go through this bent pipe. Now we have to keep some KOH in the conical flask, and another end of this bent pipe we have to insert in the water. We have to airtight this conical flask. What will happen? Just guess. When germination of seeds will take place, at that time carbon dioxide will be released, but we have kept KOH in the conical flask. So this KOH, that is potassium hydroxide, will absorb whatever carbon dioxide is released during this process. In germinating seeds, the rate of respiration is higher. Whatever carbon dioxide was released, it will be absorbed by the KOH. That's why the another end of bent pipe, which has gone from conical flask, which is inserted inside the water, in one beaker, what will happen? It will create, conical flask will create vacuum, and due to which the water will be climbing up in bent tube. So here it proves that during respiration carbon dioxide is released. In the laboratory we are going to do this experiment again, so don't worry about it. Let us go towards next part. Here we have discussed about structure of heart. So heart is made up of 4 chambers. In case of humans, 4-chambered heart. It is right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium and left ventricle. The blood, I will say rather carbon dioxide rich blood, is collected from different body parts with the help of veins, and they join in vena cava. This vena cava bring this blood to the right atrium, and from right atrium through tricuspid wall the blood goes to the right ventricle. Now this rhythmic contraction and relaxation of heart taking place, lub-dub type of sound we have seen. This carbon dioxide rich blood now from right ventricle will go towards lungs with the help of pulmonary artery. Here we have discussed what is meant by vein and what is meant by artery. The blood pipes which brings blood from body to heart are called as veins, whereas the pipes which carry blood away from the heart are called as arteries. So here it is a pulmonary artery. Through pulmonary artery this deoxygenated blood will be carried to the lungs. Now we have seen during breathing process that at alveolar level the exchange of gases takes place. So carbon dioxide will be released due to high concentration in the blood to the alveoli, and from alveoli oxygen which is in higher concentration, will come to the blood by the process of diffusion here. Now blood become oxygen rich at lungs location. So from here you can see right side part of this slide. From this lungs, this blood is again brought back to the left atrium. Now in left atrium, from this left atrium, with the help of pulmonary veins, this blood has brought, it will go to the left ventricle through bicuspid valve, or it is also called as a mitral valve. When this blood is accumulated in the left ventricle, at that time once again contraction of heart takes place, and because of this contraction high pressure is exerted on the blood, and through aorta via arteries this blood will be sent to the different parts of the body. Here we have seen that arteries are thick walled, whereas veins are little thin walled, because on arteries there is a high pressure of blood which is carried to different parts of the body. Again, veins have some walls, because while bringing blood from different parts of the body, there are chances of going back of the blood. So veins are inside the veins, there is a presence of different walls. So this was about structure of heart, how heart is functioning, and how circulation of blood through heart takes place. We have also discussed that our heart works as a pump. It is called as a double circulatory system. Why it is called as a double circulatory system? Because every time blood comes twice to the heart, once from body to heart, then it goes to the lungs, and once again from lungs to heart, second time it comes. That's why it is called as a double circulation, as blood comes twice to the heart. That's why it is called as a double circulation. With the help of animation, already I have make you understand how circulation or circulatory system takes place via heart. Here we have discussed about blood pressure, what exactly it means. The force that blood exerts against the wall of vessel is called as a blood pressure. This pressure is much greater in arteries than in veins. The pressure of blood inside artery during ventricular systole, that is contraction, is called systolic pressure, and the pressure in arteries during ventricular diastole, that is relaxation, is called as a diastolic pressure. So systole is contraction and relaxation is diastole. The normal systolic pressure is about 120 mm of Hg, and diastolic pressure is 80 mm of Hg. So here we have seen what exactly the blood pressure is. You can see in the figures, and when you are going to doctor and he is checking our blood pressure, that time he says 120 to 80 to 120. This should be a pressure range of our blood. If it is high, then he says it is high blood pressure. If it is low, then it is called he is saying it is a low blood pressure. Blood pressure is measured with an instrument. It is called as a sphygmomanometer. Sphygmomanometer. High blood pressure is also called as a hypertension, and is caused by the contraction of arteries, which result in increased resistance of blood flow. It can lead to the rupture of an artery, and internal bleeding also may take place. So high blood pressure is always not good for our health. So happy life will give proper blood pressure in our body. Okay. We already discussed about different vessels, blood vessels, which are present in our body. They are arteries and veins. So what is a arteries? Arteries are the blood pipes, blood vessels, which carry blood from heart to different parts of the body. So dear students, do remember, arteries and veins are not classified on the basis of whether they are carrying oxygenated blood or deoxygenated blood. On the contrary, they are classified on the basis of arteries are carrying blood from heart to different parts of the body, whereas veins are carrying blood from different parts of the body to heart. On the basis of that, they are named as, not on the basis of oxygenated or deoxygenated bloods. Next part of blood was platelets, which is helping to manage leakage mechanism. If because of certain things we get wounded or arteries or veins get leaked, then what? Then these platelets are leakage mechanism is cured with the help of these platelets. We know that there is a presence of prothrombin protein in the blood, and when it comes in contact with oxygen, environmental oxygen, atmospheric oxygen, that time it get coagulated and leakage process will be stopped. Sealing will be taking place in the arteries. Next part is lymphatic system. So this lymphatic system is what? This lymphatic system we have seen with the help of animation, that between the cells there is a space which is collecting liquid material from the blood vessels, and this part is collecting waste material from the different parts of the body. So here it was a lymphatic system. We have through animation already discussed about it. All living bodies need nutrients and oxygen in every cell of its various tissues to sustain life. The transport of different material and gases is essential both in plants as well as in animals. Unicellular organisms, for example amoeba and plasmodium, do not require the transport of any material because they are unicellular. These are in direct contact with their surroundings from where they obtain these nutrients. These substances are distributed in the cytoplasm due to streaming movement of cytoplasm called as a cyclosis. They exchange gases from the external environment directly by diffusion due to the difference in the concentration in the outside their body. In higher organisms, both plants and animals, digested food, oxygen, hormones, waste nitrogenous substances, etc. are to be carried from one place to the other. So, transportation of material is essential. It is done through circulatory system. As far as plants are concerned, transportation in higher plants is have specialized system for the transportation of material inside the body. The transportation of material is carried out by means of vascular tissue of the plants. The vascular tissues acts as pipes or vessels. Through these vessels or pipes, water, mineral, salts, food, etc. are transported in the plant body. In plants, the medium of transportation is water. Water and food flows through the xylem, that is tracheids and vessels are the constituents of xylem, and phloem, sieve tubes and companion cells are the components of the phloem for various metabolic activities. Tracheids and vessels are non-living parts of xylem, while sieve tubes and companion cells from the living parts of phloem. The terrestrial, that is land, plants absorb water and minerals, salts through their roots. The area of young roots where most of the absorption takes place is the root hair zone. Root hair are the extension of the epidermal cells. Root hairs are delicate and do not live more than 2 days. The root hairs have sticky wall by which they adhere tightly to the soil particles. The root hair absorb water from soil by the process of osmosis, but takes place in mineral salt by diffusion. The water and mineral salt are transported from the roots to the leaves flowers, and other parts of the plant. The upward movement of cell sap, water and mineral through the xylem is called as ascent of sap. Let us see what is meant by translocation. Phloem translocate, that is manufactured food, sugar or starch from the leaves to the different parts of the plant, including the roots. Different parts of the plant and roots. It is transported. It is called as a translocation. Now transpiration, most of the water absorbed is lost through the aerial parts of the plant into air by process called as transpiration. So 2% of total water absorbed is used up in various metabolic activities and other part is transpired. But due to this transpiration, a pressure is created, a vacuum is created, due to which absorption of water is taking place in the plants. As we have seen that transpiration plays very important vital role in the transportation of plants. So what is the importance of transpiration? It controls the rate of absorption of water from the soil. It is responsible for ascent of sap. It regulates the temperature of the plant. Most water absorbed by root is lost by transpiration without serving any purpose. The energy spent by the plant in transpiration is wasted. So transpiration is a necessary evil also at the same time. Let us see what is the difference between xylem and phloem. Xylem, functions of xylem are cells of xylem cells are dead cells. Functional phloem cells are alive. Xylems, it carries minerals, salt, water and traces of inorganic molecules. In case of phloems, an organic solution of sugar and amino acids is translocated. In case of xylems, the movement is only upward direction. In case of phloems, it is in both directions. So this was about transportation in plants. Here is the last part of this chapter, that is excretory system. We have to see here human excretory system and excretion in plants. Human excretory system, let us see first. As a result of various metabolic processes going on in our body, a number of waste products are formed. These have to be eliminated, removed, as they are toxic to the body. The waste product includes carbon dioxide, which is liberated during respiration and is eliminated by the lungs. Nitrogenous metabolic wastes such as urea and uric acid produced in the liver from excessive proteins. Bile pigments, for example bilirubin, derived by the breaking down of hemoglobin of the erythrocytes. Excess salt, water and vitamins. Concentration of these substances above the required level is harmful to the body. Elimination of the all metabolic nitrogenous waste from the body is called as a excretion. So what are the organs of excretion in case of human beings? Lungs, skin, kidney, these all are the organs of excretion. Now how lungs? Carbon dioxide produced by the oxidation of glucose or other food substances in the tissue is removed by the blood. This carbon dioxide is carried to the lungs through the blood vessels, that is veins, where it diffuses into the alveoli and out through the respiratory tract. Water vapors in small amount is also exhaled during expiration from the lungs. Skin also helps in excretion. Substances like soluble food matter, oxygen, water dissolved mineral salt, traces of urea and uric acid diffuses from the skin wall of capillaries into the walls of the sweat glands. Oxygen and food substances are used for metabolic activities of the cells of sweat glands, but the remaining metabolic waste are excreted out of the glands through the sweat duct, which opens on the surface of the skin through sweat pores. Sweat contains 99% of water traces of urea and uric acid. However, after heavy exercise, lactic acid forms a major constituent of sweat. Profuse sweating may lead to sodium deficiency, leading to muscle cramps. An adaptation of preventing of water loss is the impermeability of our skin to water. However, in aquatic animals, skin is the major excretory organ. They excrete ammonia through the skin by diffusion, as ammonia is highly soluble in the water. In humans, pair of kidney is working as an excretory system. Major excretion takes place at kidneys. Inside these kidneys, a unit of excretion, that is nephrons, are present. The structure of nephron constitutes Bowman's capsule, proximal convoluted tubule, that is PCT, Henle's loop, and distal convoluted tubule, also collecting duct. These are the 5 parts. Majorly they help in excretion. So what is Bowman's capsule? Let us see. It is a single cell thick double walled cup shaped structure present in the cortex region of the kidney. The cup shaped capsule contains a network of capillaries called glomerulus. Here there is a proximal convoluted tubule. It starts after the Bowman's capsule and is greatly twisted. The whole proximal convoluted tubule lies in the cortex region. Let us see with the help of figure. Here it is a Bowman's capsule. Then after Bowman's capsule there is a proximal convoluted tubule. After that it's a Henle's loop. Henle's loop is a U-shaped tube located in the medulla region. It consists of a thin walled descending limb in the medulla, a thick walled ascending limb in the cortex. Henle's loop is long in those animals which passes hypertonic urine. You can see in this figure, whatever this U-shaped tube downside is present, it is called as a Henle's loop. Distal convoluted tubule, the ascending limb continues into the distal convoluted tubule, which forms several coils in the cortex, and collecting duct. Collecting tubule receives distal tubule are several uriniferous tubules. Several such tubules unite to form a large collecting duct. The collecting duct are held together and converges to form a pyramid. The pyramid opens into the pelvis, which leads into the ureter. So this was about structure of nephron. Let us see how working exactly takes place. Main function of nephron is to form urine. There are 3 main processes involved in the urine formation. First is at glomerular ultrafiltration. It is the filtration of body fluids and solutes from the blood out of the glomerular capillaries into the Bowman's capsule. Due to the pressure in the glomerulus, all substances from the blood are filtered out except the large protein molecules. This fluid in the glomerulus capsule is called as a glomerular filtrate. It consists of water, urea, salt, glucose and other plasma solutes. Blood coming out of the efferent arteriola is therefore thick. Tubular reabsorption takes place at loop of Henle, we have discussed. Glomerular filtrate contains a lot of useful material like glucose, salt such as that of sodium and water. These substances are reabsorbed from the renal tubule of various level and in various proportions. Glucose is reabsorbed completely from the proximal convoluted tubule. More than 85% of water is reabsorbed from the proximal distal and even in collecting tubule. Sodium chloride is reabsorbed in the proximal and distal tubules. Potassium and phosphate is completely reabsorbed from the proximal tubule. Other substances reabsorbed are uric acid, sulfates, vitamin C, amino acids, etc. Now tubular secretions, this occurs mainly in the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting duct of the nephron. It is an active vital process performed by the cells of the cuboidal epithelium lining the tubules, which excrete additional waste from the bloodstream into the filtrate by active transport. In this process, substances like potassium, hydrogen, creatinine and certain drugs like phenol, penicillin, etc. are directly exerted by tubular cells from the blood. The fluid which now flows through the last part of the tubule is urine, which consists of water, urea, uric acid, mineral oil, ions like sodium, potassium, chloride, phosphate, etc. Now, this collected urine will be sent to the ureter, and from ureter it will be collected in the urinary bladder, and once urinary bladder get full, it will be sent out of the body. So this was about excretion in case of human beings with the help of nephrons. Structure of nephron we have already seen. Once again, just see at the diagram. Here is the process of dialysis, that is by using artificial kidney. In case of loss or damage of one kidney, the other kidney performs the function of both the kidneys and the person can lead a normal life. But the failure of both the kidneys leads to death. Artificial kidney is a dialysis machine which cleans blood of waste products, thus acting like a kidney. The patient's blood is led from the radial artery of the arms through the machine where urea and other salts are removed and pure blood is returned to the vein in the same arm. In case of permanent damage to the kidneys, dialysis has to be performed for about 12 hours twice a week. Patients with chronic kidney failure have been recorded to survive for more than 12 years on dialysis. Nowadays, diseased kidneys may be replaced with healthy one by kidney transplantation. To lead a normal life, one healthy kidney is more than enough. Therefore, a healthy person can donate his one kidney to patient who has both kidneys impaired. Now, this dialysis machine contains different types of salts which by the process of osmosis removes the waste material from the blood, and this is called as a dialysis machine or artificial kidney. Like animals, plants doesn't have special structures or organs for excretion. So in case of plants, root, leaves, heartwood, special sac-like structures are helping for excretion. So whatever waste material is present, with the help of roots, they are sending it out of the body. Some of the excretory material is stored in the leaves, and during leaf fall, these excretory substances will be sent out of the body. Some of the excretory substances are stored in heartwood of the stem. So at the time of death only, these excretory substances will be removed. And in case of some marine animals, marine plants, the plants which are living near seashore, they have sac-like structures which collect this waste material and they will be detached from the plants. So by the process of transpiration also with the help of leaves, this excretion process in plants takes place. Through transpiration, dissolved excretory products can be sent out of the plant. Leaf fall takes place as we have discussed. In leaves there will be an accumulation of waste material, and in saline plants sac-like structures are present. So you have to solve this exercise. I hope you have already solved it. So this was a recapitulation of this chapter. Once again we have revised this chapter. We will again discuss, will not discuss about this chapter now. Let us finish this chapter here only, solve exercise fully, and let us go towards next chapter in next video lecture.